right. Hey, Scott. Thanks so much for joining me. Welcome to the show. I always like to start these episodes by getting a little bit about the backstory. Let me know how you got started in the business and, what were you doing before you kind of became a marketer and, how did that whole transition go?
Yeah, well, Matt, listen, man, thanks so much for having me on the show. And if you're listening to this, we're going to be going through some cool stuff today. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, I wouldn't consider myself a marketer. I would consider myself an entrepreneur first, marketer second. And we'll probably go into why that is a little bit later. I guess my story starts off, as I was coming out of the womb of my mother, and 7 years later, I found myself having chickens on an acreage because we lived on like 9-10 acres of land, and making like $20,000 selling eggs, which is like stupid. Like it's just kind of hilarious thinking back at it. And then from there, I was like a geek. I was like this little fat kid that was like short, and I was a short, fat kid. And I learned programming because I didn't really have any friends. And I turned that into a very, very successful business. By the time I was 16 years old, we were running a very, very successful business that was incredibly profitable. But then through a series of bad partners and investing too much money in too many companies too fast, and my ADD and all the different things, my lack of patience and my cockiness and my inflated ego, I wouldn't be able to even fit in this room with the amount of ego I had back then. I lost everything. I was at $726,000 in debt about 37 months ago.
Wow.
It was kind of my rock bottom per se. And I guess from there, you learn a lot of lessons when you're, you don't have any money and you don't really have any friends and you're not really connected. Anyways, just like, the list goes on and on and on and on. And then there's like that moment, and I think everybody has this moment that kind of hit rock bottom. Then you have this moment of kind of, realizing that this is not what life is for. Like, going in this downward spiral is not what life is all about, and that there is more particularly that's out there, and it all changes with who you are as a person. It's not the fact that you had a bad business. It's not the fact that you had a bad partner. It's not the fact you blame it on a ton of shit. Like while you're there, drinking yourself in a coma, right? And you're like, all depressed about your situation. It's not none of those outside factors. It's you, right? And I create, we're all here. If you're listening to this today, you're exactly where you deserve to be. And I think once you decide and understand that and accept that, you say, okay, well, if I'm where I'm to and I'm not happy where I'm to, and I deserve to be somewhere else, then I needed to take the actions in order to, change that situation of where I'm to in life, or, whatever that situation may be for you. So I decided that, and, one of the biggest things I understood was that a king, well, as entrepreneurs, we always want to be kings and queens. Like, there's no other, like, the whole reason of being an entrepreneur, the whole reason that we're idiotic enough, stupid enough, okay, and to go against all the odds, to sacrifice everything we have, all of our time, our relationships, everything else, is because, quite simply, of the one of 6 human needs that we want, as Tony Robbins talks to us about, is significance. We want and we require significance through legacy, through impact, through whatever. Now, that's not a bad thing. Like, that can be the worst thing or it can be the best thing for you. Depends on how you translate it. The way that I translate it is that I was a king and people serve me instead of the other way around. So I was always, how can I get this? How can I get that? When I was younger, right? And that's why I went into so much debt, and that's why I went, in this downward spiral, right? So I changed that. And so in 2014, we did about $1 million in revenue through an agency. In 2015, I decided that was a horrible situation and it wasn't going to fulfill me, which is also kind of hilarious because I was still in debt. Like, I was still in debt, and there was no, I was paying a bit in debt, blah, blah, blah. And it was more down to like 300,000 by that point. But I was like, this doesn't fulfill me. And I can get up like 8 o'clock in the morning and go and do this, but I can't do 18-hour days. So, I transitioned by mistake into what I do now, which is helping entrepreneurs making $50K to $500,000 go above 7 figures by implementing an automatic marketing funnel called the Ssf Method into their business. And I've never had so much fun in my life. Not only because we were talking about this before. I don't particularly enjoy that many people. All right. I really love being around entrepreneurs. I really love being around entrepreneurs. And I love being around entrepreneurs that are doing like 100, 200K, because those entrepreneurs, you give them something to do, you give them like a methodology formula, and you know it's going to work. Like, they're going to put that on as like literally putting jet fuel into their business. And they're like 6 months in the road, they're operating $1 million business. You're like, what the hell? Like, what happened? And I was like, sweet. All right. And so we've been doing this over and over and over again. We got a couple thousand customers now, implementing this type of strategy. And like, that's really fulfilling. Like, me going into a business that's like doing $10 to $15 million and me helping them and it taking forever to get approved and everything else, like, that doesn't fulfill me. Like, that's what I was doing with the agency. Right. But to be able to work with entrepreneurs that can make things happen so quickly, I mean, that makes me wake up 4 or 5 a.m. every single morning. That's just so much fun.
Yeah. So right now, today, what is the business model?
Yeah. So it's essentially advisory, coaching, and information.
Okay.
It's, I would say, assisted information. So we don't really sell anything that isn't at some level assisted, because I think that just pure information products, I think the days of those are a little bit gone. Okay.
Right.
And I think that it needs to be in an assistive fashion. So we got the typical value ladder and all those different types of things. But, we have our product range, going right from $97 right up to about $30,000, and our main kind of premier products, $2-3 grand, right? Mm-hmm. And so majority of my time is spent literally taking my knowledge and the knowledge of the people I surround myself with and kind of putting it into methodologies and frameworks that allow an entrepreneur to be able to repeat that process.
Gotcha.
And result without needing to hire me for $75,000 for 4 or 5 months to be able to do it.
Gotcha. Now, now, is there a distinction between advisory and coaching? I'm just curious. What's the difference there?
I would say advisory would come from a perspective. Okay, so I mean, and by the way, I have to put in here that I had my mindset shifted by David Gonzalez. I don't know if you know David or not.
What was the last name?
Gonzalez. He runs I Am Party.
Oh, David Gonzalez. Okay, yeah, I know him well. Yeah.
And so we were at a mastermind, and he changed my kind of methodology behind what coaching / mentoring / advisory is, right?
Right. Okay.
And so I always kind of group them into the same thing. And coaching is more along the lines of, I would say, at some levels. And I mean, I'm sure if you're a coach out there, you're going to disagree with me. Okay, like. Totally get it. All right. I'm not a coach, so you feel free to disagree with me, and feel free to rewrite the dictionary for me. But coaching to me, at least from what I see, is more on accountability side, more on kind of talking you through it. Advisory for me is advisory / mentoring is more of, hey, listen, I've done this so many damn times that this is how you do it to get success. Yeah. Now you can do it a different way, and that's totally cool, but I've helped do it this way 10 times, and it's all worked every single time. And I think that's the difference. Right? So advisory means you're working with somebody that 5 to 10 to 20 years in something, right? Coaching, anybody can truly be a coach if they know the methodology to be able to walk somebody through, and accountability, that type of thing. Now, the level of how good a coach is obviously takes time and experience and knowledge and everything else. That's my politically correct answer right there, right? That's what we're really about. I tend to kind of go towards more of the mentoring and advisory than just the coaching, because I like people that know intuitively, from a gut perspective, how to implement a funnel. So it's more about implementation and strategy than it is just accountability and that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Okay, because I've always done sort of coaching, mentoring, and advising. Coaching and mentoring to me are almost the same. I feel like coaching is more, there's a price tag on it. Mentoring's a little bit, I take people under my wing.
And David changed this for me. David, because I thought, like 2 months ago, I thought the exact same thing. Uh-huh. And then I realized that because I pay all my mentors, right? All the mentors in my life I pay very well.
Yeah.
And I thought they were coaches. But then if you split what they are down the middle, they are very different, right? And because I agree with you, like I had the same thinking process behind it, and then I was like, That kind of makes more sense. So, anyways,
Right.
next time you talk to David, ask him about it and tell him, and make sure you tell him I gave him credit
Okay.
because I can't steal that from him. But yeah, I mean, I think that, and I think the number of businesses. I mean, here's the other thing. I think the number of businesses you're going to see go from. I mean, there's a lot in the IM space. There's lots of info out there, and lots of info. I think you're going to see an explosion in the amount of advisory based and mentoring based companies compared to just, I'll say, coaching based. Giving my definition, your definition, somebody else listening to this definition may be different, but based on my definition, whichever way you want to splice that, I think you're going to see an explosion of that because people are past. There's a certain level of sophistication that's coming with the market now, and they want more than information.
Yeah.
Right.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, the way I've split it down is for me, it was always coaching is people that are paying me for coaching. Mentoring is like kind of the people I take under my wing and work with. And then advisory, I've always considered advisory is I'm working with them, but they're giving me equity in return. Like that equity piece was always like the advisory element to it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, like, I stopped doing that. I stopped doing the equity thing, to be honest with you. And maybe it's because, I mean, at the end of the day, the equity piece is just, it just gets so damn complicated. I'm just like, just give me cash. And for me at least. And, hey, listen, a majority of deals, I probably would have made a heck of a lot more money on equity. But to me, what the other problem is conflict of interest comes up when you start taking equity of a bunch of different companies, right? Conflict of interest comes up. When you're getting just paid and you're like, here's where I'm bringing you, and here's how much money you're giving me.
Right.
There's no conflict of interest. It's like it's in stone what you're giving me. Whereas when you're involved with a bunch of different companies, there's a lot of conflict of interest that can start coming up to the table, right? Yeah. Anyways, that's just my. Again, 6 months from now, you might ask me. I always say my opinions change very quickly, very abruptly.
Yeah, you have no idea. I'm the same way. I mean, you'll probably hear me have a strong opinion on a podcast 6 months ago and a completely different opinion now. I'm very open-minded, and my opinions shift almost daily. That's why I do the podcast. I mean, the thing is, for me, when it comes to, the reason I've always thought of mentoring as like a free thing is because I consider almost everybody I bring on my show a little bit of a mentor. I consider the people that I've partnered with in the past mentors of mine. I consider my dad, who's actually an entrepreneur and ran his own business, a mentor of mine. So to me, the mentoring thing was always that element of these people I'm learning from without paying, because I'm kind of watching what they're doing and working sort of alongside with them. That was kind of my little distinction there. I'm going to have to bring David on the podcast because we are buddies. So I'm going to bring him on the podcast. I'm going to dive into that with him for sure.
Yeah, but because, he changed the mindset to me. He changed my mindset based on it. And I probably haven't formulated in my brain enough to be able to articulate it the way that he has, but I would definitely, bring him on here because I think he would be able to articulate it far better than me because I'm like, I should not be talking about this. I literally should not be I should not be talking about this stuff because I probably don't know enough of the definition. And I'm going to have some angry coaches or mentors or advisors coming after me.
No, the whole point of this is to kind of get people thinking outside of their normal box. But let's go ahead and shift focus anyway, and let's talk about the agency business because I'm curious. I run an agency. Yep. This agency started about 2013. I was always an info product guy before that. Decided to start the agency to kind of do done for you stuff.
Yep.
And that's kind of my main income source now. But you mentioned that you really can't stand running an agency, and the agency was sort of one of the bigger frustrations you had in business. So let's dive into that a little bit because there's probably some people listening to this that are thinking about going down that agency route. And I want to give them some other perspectives on it. I want to give people some, why did he hate agencies? Am I making a bad choice for myself? So let's talk about what you dislike so much about running the agency business.
How strong is my filter on this? How strong can I swear on this podcast?
You can say whatever you want on this podcast.
All right. So here is my thing. I don't want to be someone's bitch. Okay? And I love Chris Brogan because he's all about own your destiny. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I want you to understand, if you're here, you're listening to this, and you're at like ground zero, all right? An agency is the easiest, quickest way to be able to get cash flow and get cash in the bank, all right? It is a bitch to try to scale, it is almost impossible to have the life that you may want to design, okay? And you will be owned by your clients for at least some time until you scale it properly. Your profit margins are damn small compared to a lot of different things that you could be doing with the skill that you probably have. And you rely on a really big team for a very few number of clients if you're doing things at scale. Okay? So now all of those things mean that you got to be one hell of a business owner and one hell of an entrepreneur to be able to manage a high proficient team with a low margin, continually be able to serve your clients' needs, and be able to do all of this stuff at the same time. So, well, let me give it to you this way. The first $250,000 as an agency owner is really friggin' easy, okay? First $250,000, go out, sell your heart out, and just keep your clients happy. You know what I mean? Get some results, everything else. Past the $250,000, when you start, because at that $250,000, you're going to start having to scale systems. You're going to start to scale processes, your team, all of these different types of things. So your profit margin at the beginning is going to be high. It's going to dip really quickly once you get to that $250,000, $500,000 range. And for me, again, if this is the first time, if this is your first rodeo in that, hey, listen, if it's exciting for you, if it's fun for you, if you're cool with it, go for it. I've been doing and running agency stuff since like 2004, 2005. I'm just sick of this shit, right? So I don't want to bias you against doing it. I just want you to know the risks that when you start out, it looks really nice, right? It looks really sexy. It's a great way to get experience. It's a great way to get knowledge. It's a great way to get in the industry. It's a great way to get known. So if you're starting out and you don't have those things, it's different, right? I've been doing this shit for like 15 years now, right? Like I've earned my frigging stripes. Be like, screw you, agency, right?
Right.
But I'm definitely not saying no, don't go do an agency. I'll just have the expectation that being able to get away from it is very difficult. And being able to transition to another business, so difficult. All right, so difficult. So let me just tell you a story. When we were transitioning out of our agency back in 2015, so this was May of 2015, we started our first online program. It was like $1,500, $2,000. And we sold like 24 copies of it. So we had like 30, 40 grand kind of coming from that. Now, we were running things at an expenditure of about maybe $60,000, $70,000 on a monthly basis.
Wow.
And we were bringing in at least $100K or so on a monthly basis, right? So, if we kept on going in 2015 at our current speed, we probably would have hit $2+ million, right, in revenue. And I just, the profit margins were 10, 15%. They were just not high. I mean, you make $1 million and only have 100 grand like in the bank. Like I might as well go and work for somebody at that stage, right? And so then we transitioned out, and transitioning out was really, really, really difficult. I had to let go of my entire team besides one person, right, in order to make that happen. I had to, like, honest to God, I mean, like, there was points where I had like $900 in my business bank account, right? Because you have all these expenditures, and trying to scale back from those expenditures and try to scale something else up, it's very difficult to scale two things at the same time, or even scale and maintain one thing without having investment money, right? And trying to get investment money in an agency is like the kiss of death, right? Because someone's going to come in and want at least 30, 40% of your business. You try to either go scale that and then get more investment later, or transition out of that. Now you're going to have partnership problems. Then you got a lawyer on your hands. Then you got to be paying that. I mean, like, it is really difficult to get an agency, scale that agency, and either sell it or transition into something else. So I just say it's not to say no, don't do an agency. Yeah. There's lots of very successful agencies. All I'm saying is if you're not passionate about it and you're not bought into it, don't do it.
Yeah. No, I love the fact that you mentioned, like, it's a great way to gain experience and gain knowledge, because there is sort of this epidemic in the like info product world where people are selling training courses based on training courses that they went through, right? So they bought a course on how to scale a business, and then they turn around and teach how to scale a business because they've never done it themselves.
I really, really fucking hate those people. There's a special place for those people.
Right.
I do not believe that. Here's the deal. You talk to a trainer, okay? It depends on how it's positioned, all right? It depends on how it's positioned. if they're a newbie positioning themselves as a pro, okay, and they're trying to teach a bunch of people that, expect a pro, that's different than someone being like, hey, listen, I have a cool way of teaching it. And I'm just like, someone could come through my program and be like, hey, listen, I need to simplify this even more for people that are even, lower on, because, people under or people under 50K, I don't really tailor them to. So if someone came through my program and developed a program for someone that's like literally starting out, that's a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like I can see that, but I hate with a passion people that literally they come into my program where I see them 6 months ago and they're like no expert or whatever, and then now they're trying to position themselves as an expert. And listen, cool, you're trying to make something that but be fucking honest with like who you are and what you're doing. You know what I mean? And like I came into this industry, and the reason why I've had success in this industry is because I've been doing online marketing for a long frigging time. Have I been teaching it for a while? No, I've been doing this shit for other people and myself, right? And so I don't think it's, training. The problem with training based on someone's other information is at a certain point, your bullshit is going to come back and bite you in the ass because you don't have enough information or knowledge or experience about what it is. Right?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things you said, and then this is kind of jumping back to a few minutes ago, you mentioned that skill set, there's a lot better uses for that skill set other than an agency. What are some of those other uses that you were kind of referring to?
Well, I think a lot of people don't actually want to be an entrepreneur. Okay?
Probably true.
I think a lot of people, because here's a problem in this Gary V, Grant Cardone obsessed world, okay? Yeah. And hey, listen, I got a lot of respect for Gary and what he's done. I got a lot of respect for Grant for what he's done, okay? I got a lot of respect for these guys. But the problem is they have made entrepreneurship sexy, okay? Entrepreneurship should not be fucking sexy. Entrepreneurship should not be sexy. Entrepreneurship isn't sexy. Right? James Altucher talks about this. I was at a talk one time, and James Altucher, said about the fact that entrepreneurship is the fucking worst job in the world, and it is. You got to be clearly out of your fucking marbles in order to be an entrepreneur, right? And so a lot of people think they want to be an entrepreneur. What they really want to be is a intrapreneur, somebody that controls their life. They say yes or no with full understanding that they are a valuable human being. A lot of people try to use entrepreneurship as them just saying, I am a valuable human being and I will get my worth out of what I do for my work. So if you listen to this and you don't want to take the risk as being an entrepreneur yet or whatever, go find an entrepreneur that wants to hire intrapreneurs. Like me, I don't hire employees. I hire stakeholders and I hire intrapreneurs, people that are entrepreneurial on my behalf, right? Yeah. They get rewarded for it. And a lot of the time, that's where a lot of people should start, and instead they go out and they fuck themselves up because they're not actually an entrepreneur. You know how much fucking emotional immune system you know how hard it is on your emotional immune system to be a fucking entrepreneur? It is so goddamn difficult. Yeah. Right? It is so damn difficult. And so there's so many people out there, and an entrepreneur is the new fucking rock star. Right? It's the new rock star. It's like, oh, look at my vacations, look at my jet, everything else. And it's nobody tells them the fact that they go on a tropical place. They have literally 30 minutes, right? They might have 30 minutes and they're going on a jet. You know why they go on a jet? Because of well, half the time they don't even go on a jet. They just take pictures next to a jet. But, besides that case, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, right? And so if you're starting out, hey, listen, it's cool to have something on the side. It's cool. Go work for a true entrepreneur. I'm not talking like a CEO. I'm talking entrepreneur. There's a difference between a CEO and an entrepreneur, right? And go work around an entrepreneur and work. And just remember that it's about owning your life and owning your decisions and owning your destiny. And that doesn't always mean that you have to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love the statement that you made about how you only go out and you hire entrepreneurs, people who want to be entrepreneurial, but on your behalf. That is awesome. So people that have that drive, that want the sort of time freedom and that sort of stuff, but they're willing to work for somebody else to get those same sort of qualities.
Yeah, I don't even get on the phone with anybody. When I'm hiring, so we have a pretty good application process that I stole from Danny Inney and Ryan Levac. And yeah, I only get on the phone with the entrepreneurs at this point. And the first question is like, are you an entrepreneur? And as soon as someone hesitates, I'm like, all right, perfect, sweet. We got an entrepreneur. Because the process weeds out the employees. Because like, I can't work with employees. Like I like you. If you think you're going to show up work with me 9 to 5, like they're so funny. Like it's hilarious, right? Like because I just simply, that's not simply me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's really important if you're listening to this and you are a true entrepreneur. I think it's important, at least for your first 10 employees, first 10, 15 people, you got to be employing entrepreneurs. You can't build a 600 person company not having employees. It just simply will not work, right? But at the starting point, 5 to 10 people, if you have employees, you're going to fail because you just simply can't be nimble. You can't be quick. Man, I just felt like a nursery rhyme there. And yeah, like, I mean, I think it's really critically important to make sure that at the beginning you're hiring those entrepreneurs. And if you are somebody that thinks you're an entrepreneur, really kind of ask yourself the question: Do you really want to sacrifice everything right now where you're doing your life, or do you want to go and learn how to be an entrepreneur from somebody else? Because that's the best way to learn. Right.
So. Okay, I'm gonna shift focus a little bit. We're gonna talk about funnel building and some funnel strategies in a second, but there is one little topic I wanted to touch on real quick because the way I discovered you was Nick Loper's podcast, right? The Side Hustle Nation podcast, and you talked on that show about podcasting and your love for podcasting at the time. Yeah, but are you still doing a podcast?
No.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. What was the philosophy change in podcasting since then? This was something that I tried to talk about before we actually hit record, and you said let's do this on the recording because your listeners will want to hear about this stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, here's my thing. I love podcasting. If you're doing a podcast to like build a list and build a business, there's a very small chance that that's ever going to happen. Okay.
Yeah. And don't worry about offending me over podcasting because I know the ups and downs. So you can,
you know, you know it. Don't worry. I'm not trying to be politically correct. I'm just trying to formulate the words so somebody can actually get some sense out of this. So here's the thing with podcasting. People get into it thinking they're going to make money. Less than 1% actually ever make money that are doing podcasting. Majority of people don't run it like a business. They run it like a hobby, right? So that's number 2. Now, the pros of a podcast. You've experienced this, and it's probably related right back into your business. If you want to meet people that would never speak to you for no reason whatsoever, okay, start a podcast.
Yeah.
Right? Really fucking easy to get somebody on a podcast. Try to get me on the phone. Not invite. Like, I mean, I got to be honest with you. Like, I really don't say yes to many podcasts. Never to summits anymore. Summit, man, what a pile of shit that is.
Speaking of which, I think you and I are actually sharing a panel on one of Naveed's coming summits. So.
Well, okay, but here's the difference. Naveed, Chandler Bolt, like there's some people doing good shit with summits, all right? But majority of people, again, treat it like shit and they get shit out of it. Naveed treats it like a business, right? Treats it like a business. He brings massive value to the table and he brings massive value for me and you, right? Problem is, people get into this stuff. I mean, you know, I won't go down the summit route, but people do these summits, and I mean, like, honestly, selling me a $97 package of recordings for what is a glorified podcast. I mean, please come on. That pisses me off to no end. Somebody got on the phone with me the other day trying to get me to do a summit, and it was like, yeah, well, you can be an affiliate. We're selling we're selling the recordings for $297. I'm like on the phone, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? No, I'm not going to speak at your summit. No, I'm not going to give this to my audience. Like, I protect my audience, like, you know, I protect my, like, fiance.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, the way you feel about summits is almost mirroring the way I feel about summits. I like the concept of summits if you're going to treat it like a business and the content you're creating is exclusive and you're going to ramp it up and scale it and do the kinds of things Naveed's done with it. My sort of downfall with summits is that I have a really hard time seeing the distinction between a podcast and a summit. So you're basically going and selling what most people can go find for free on iTunes. That's my sort of big struggle with it.
Because here's what, if I ever did a summit, here's what I would do. I would bring everybody in, all right? I would bring them in for like a 3-day, okay? I'd pay for everyone to fly in. I would do like a 3-day mastermind. We record some of the mastermind stuff, record the sessions. We would do like some cool like live Q&A stuff. Like spend fucking $150,000 like developing the damn thing.
So like creative lifestyle.
Yes, like that is what a summit needs, in my opinion, because everything else is honestly bullshit.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, make it feel much higher value. Make it feel like they are literally getting what you'd get by paying and going to a seminar like Traffic and Conversion, but just an online version, instead of making it feel like people are just getting a series of podcast episodes dripped out over days.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the problem is that you need to bring those people together, right? Let's say you're doing a panel or whatever. You need to bring people together. You need to get them, being comfortable. So you need to have some, you need to have some people, drinking and eating and having some good times and like whatever. So the next day when they're doing a panel, they can like joke around and like know things about each other and that type of thing, right? But anyways,
make them feel like they're getting insider shit that they wouldn't get on a podcast anyway.
You got it. You got it. Actually, you're spinning my gears here for next year.
Well, you got me on a topic that I've sort of thought about for a while, but never gotten a chance to rant on. So
yeah, I mean, like summits is I mean, like this. I mean, the poor guy. I mean, like at the end of the day, it's his first summit. Like I probably shouldn't have like lashed out on him, but like I hate people that don't bring true value to the table. Like I really fucking hate people that like think. Like they've almost bullshit themselves so much to think that they bring value that they actually get on the phone and think that you're going to be interested on what they're talking about. Anyways, so
let's bring it back to podcast for a second.
Podcasting. Yeah, some podcasting. So I think if you want to connect with people that you probably wouldn't be able to connect with and be seen as an authority in the marketplace, use a podcast on the front end and like don't think that you're going to make money on sponsorships or like any of this shit. Okay. Yeah. Number one, your download numbers are gonna be shit. Like you're gonna launch and you're gonna be like, this fucking sucks. 66 people download my episode. Fuck me, right? Like that's what's gonna happen at the beginning, right? Like I remember we hit like number one in Canada with like 1,500 or 2,000 downloads, right? And I was just like, wow, this is like come on, like, this is really about the ego. This is about nothing but the ego here. Like, oh, I got number one. Woohoo! Shit, I didn't do really good at all. So, I mean, like at the end of the day, it's going to get more and more difficult, of course, for starting up podcasts to be able to get listeners. But I mean, like at the end of the day, what I would do if I started a podcast and I was like a nobody. I mean, come on, I am a nobody, but let's say I was like totally like brand new. What I would do is I would go to some of the podcasts, like podcast hosts, and like get them on my podcast and just like have a conversation with those people that are like maybe not crazy, but because what's going to happen is they'll probably introduce you to some people, be like, oh, you're into this, blah blah, and they've probably met 50 to 150 people. They'll be able to connect you. They're super connected, and then once you get inside that kind of like, there's a very small group inside of the podcasting world. In almost every industry at the end of the day, that's what I would do, and then you can start going. Once you get some people on the podcast that are like a little bit noteworthy, you can start going to people. I mean, you get them on there pretty quickly and pretty easily. What you just have to do at the end of the day, like the last thing you want to do is do a copy and paste, like, get an introduction, right? Like find a way to get an introduction. If someone introduces me for a podcast, I'll take it. Someone submits the form on my website for a podcast, like I don't even reply back to it. I'm just like, close, see you later. Okay, right? But at the end of the day, majority of people that are at the level that you want to interview, like they were literally at this point, like I get at least 1 or 2 summit requests a week and at least 3 or 4 podcasts on a weekly basis. And you got to realize, here's the deal. Majority of the time, unless I want to know the podcast, unless I want to know you, Matt, there's no point of me coming on the podcast because the ROI for me as a person for the hour and a half plus the fucking 4 times I've rescheduled this is simply not high enough. Yeah. And anybody that does podcasts knows that, right? Like the ROI from doing a podcast as your guest is they want to know who you are, or they're just pretty green to the podcast world. Right. So when it comes to direct ROI, make sure your podcast, like I would do a podcast once you know what your product's going to be or what your product is, and make sure it connects. You know what I mean? Like having a podcast in your, like I would assume, Matt, that having a podcast for you, the reason you started it, because you want to meet more people, expand your network. And, you know, when it comes to actual dollars and cents back to your agency, how much is actually particularly going back because of that, right? Are you building an audience on a monthly basis? Yes, but I guarantee you, majority of people don't. Majority of people might get 50 subscribes on a monthly basis, which, let's be honest, 20 hours invested in a podcast isn't worth it.
Yeah. No, I agree with most of what you said there. The reason I started the podcast, there's definitely multiple reasons for starting this podcast specifically, but the number one reason was to expand the network. You know, and let's be honest, before I started this podcast, I had a following, right? So my email list was 60,000 subscribers before I ever started this podcast. So it was a way to put additional content in front of people that was going to sort of bond people with me further.
But dude, I mean, like the amount of people that have a 60,000 person email list starting off on a podcast is like one hand, right? You know, majority of people do not have that size of an audience, and you had an incredible unfair advantage.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is with this podcast, I'm not going out there and telling people you need to go start a podcast. In fact, most people that ask me about it, I'm like, unless your motive is just to connect with people, I wouldn't do it, right? I'm doing it because I want to connect with people, and the way I'm connecting people is people like you. Let's say I come to you, well, what's in it for you to be on my podcast? Well, I have 60,000 subscribers I'm going to mail this to when it goes live, right? So that's what's in it for my guest, and that's how I'm building my network, right? But if you don't have that asset to start, then it doesn't really make a whole heck of a lot of sense to you.
It's a hard hustle, man. It's a hard hustle at the beginning. And, you know, trying to get loyalty, that's particularly there. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I had a little bit of the same unfair advantage. I didn't have 60,000 people starting off, but I had a pretty good starting base from that very, very first moment. And I mean, for me, we started our podcast in I think we did our podcast for 16 months, 2 episodes a week. And I mean, like, you know, I got to meet became friends, not just me. I became friends with a lot of really great people because of that. And, you know, I'm looking at doing a video one in 2017, kind of almost like a Lewis Howe style, where I actually get in the, you know, the same room as them. But that's just because I can afford to do it now. Right. And because I actually want to get to know someone. So, you know, we'll go out for be like, hey, listen, you know, so-and-so, you want to go, you know, you want to go to my audience. I mean, by the end of this year, we'll have like 125, 150,000 people that are all entrepreneurs on our email list. Yeah. Right. So for me to call somebody up and be like, hey, listen, you want to spend half a day together so that we can like get to know each other, we can do whatever, and then like have a cameraman follow us around and like do that type of stuff. That's what I want to do. Oh, yeah. That to me is huge value.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's where I feel the next evolution of this show is for me to make this sustainable. I think I need to up the value a little bit to myself. I need to make it worthwhile to myself a little more to sustain it. And that's probably the next evolution of this podcast is more in-person shows. I told you before this that I work above a brewery. So if I go down the stairs, I'm in a brewery. I sit around and I actually drink beer at my desk, not all day, but you know, for portions of the day. But I was always thinking it'd be kind of cool to start asking people, hey, let's come hang out at the brewery. I'll set up a camera. We'll sit there face to face, have a beer and chat. Right. I think that's kind of the next evolution of this show, and that's where it's going to go.
And I love that. And you have the audience to be able to, like, I don't think somebody starting off should do that, because I think it's a bad waste of your time unless you have an audience. You know what I mean? Like, unless you have an audience, unless you have a monetization strategy, that's a dumb use of your time. Right. But if you have an audience, you have the monetization strategy. You know what I mean? Like and the other thing, and maybe we can segue into lead generation for this real quick. Yeah. What I see a lot of the time people doing, they build an audience they build an audience for the sake of building an audience instead of building an audience to be able to bring leads through the door and money into their bank account. And in my opinion, you need to train your audience to buy right from the get-go.
Yeah.
I'm not talking like the first email. Like, it don't have to be the first email, but I think in my opinion, and I've seen this like time again, people come to me with like these massive audiences and like literally they can't make $1. Yeah. And I have like 1/10 of the audience and I'm making like 100 times what they're making.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of people are like, yeah, no, I'll get the audience and I'll make money. I'm like, nah, not really, right? And so you need to be very intentional about why you are building that audience. You need to be very intentional what you're going to sell that audience. You need to be very intentional what your podcast or what your webinar or whatever is going to particularly do. And people just going blind being like, well, I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship. It's like, yeah, so is everybody else is. What makes you any different, right? Like, what is the actual value proposition? And so, that partially annoys me because it goes back to how people think that entrepreneurship's so easy and how building an audience is so easy, because they look at someone and they try to replicate someone. And here goes back to the other thing of if you are yourself in what you do and you attract people like the 10 or 15, because like 10 or 15% of people love me, 10-15% like me, the rest of them not so much, and then there's like 5% of people that are like, fuck Scott Oldford, like this guy can fuck himself. And that's fine, that's great. And I think that a majority of people that are online kind of personalities in whatever space you're in, you need to be dedicated on being your own self authentically, because you turn off the record, I'm the exact same way I am right now, right? And I think that that's a big part in the online world, is so many people put a filter on because they're afraid of offending people or like not making an audience or like whatever it would be. I mean, like, I get a shit ton of hate mail, right? And for stupid, dumb reasons too. And I mean, and and I think you gotta be okay with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I think that's let's transition and talk about, I don't know if it's lead generation, funnel building, whatever you want to call it, but let's generation, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Let's segue into that next sort of segment, and let's talk briefly about what you do for people and the funnel building and the strategies that you teach people. I want to talk about that for a minute before we run out of time here.
Cool. So I'll give it to you in like 90 seconds, 120 seconds. If you're more interested about this, it's over on my website, goinfinitus.com. I will try to sell you some shit at some point, just FYI, all right? So just giving you the thing, I'll give you all kinds of really great free shit, but I will ask you to give me your credit card number at some point. All right, so here's the dealio. Majority of Funnels 1.0, what we're used to for funnel building up to this point in society, is essentially the same as, I don't have a business. Do I have a business card right now? Like, not mine, but I'm just trying to see if I got it. No, I don't have it. So anyways, it's like taking a business card, all right, and going to your networking event. And I'm sure, Matt, you've probably gone to a networking event before, I would assume.
One or two, yeah.
Yeah, a few. And, you got this guy that comes up to you and he's just like, he's the 90-second, like, he's just like 90 seconds, blah, 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 here's a carrot. And then you're like, okay, I don't want to go. Whatever this dude's selling, whatever this dude's doing, I'm like, see you later. He asks you for your card, you're just like, no. You got a full pocket of cards, right? And so that's what funnel building's largely been, right? Add to a landing page, to an email stream, to a webinar, sales page, VSL, whatever.
Right. And,
oh yeah, we got that 0.2%. All right, we made 3 times more, 4 times more. Sweet, this is a success. Awesome, let's keep feeding money in here, boys. And that's been largely funnel building up to this point. All right, a majority of entrepreneurs, now, if you're making $5, $10, $20 million, that hasn't been funnel building. All right, but majority of entrepreneurs making $500,000. That's been the extent of their funnel if they got one at all.
Yep.
And if you don't know what a funnel is, then God help you. Go on Google, search it. It's essentially a multi-part experience, allowing your customer to go through an experience of who you are and what you are, and being able to actually buy something from you. Now, the way that we do lead generation, and one of my goals is to have 100,000 entrepreneurs using this by June 2018, is essentially there's 3 different types of leads that are being attracted to you on a daily basis. And it's our job as entrepreneurs to bring them through the 3 different mindsets of lead generation and speak to them differently, attract them differently, and bring them from one place to the other. So we call this the Ssf Method. And this is what plays into our framework, Funnels 2.0. And Funnels 2.0 is all about behavior and asking people and surveying people and being just honestly a little bit of a smarter, trying to be smarter. Right? Mm-hmm. Trying to be smarter. And so the Ssf Method stands for the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane. And what it's all about is being able to take somebody based on where they're to from a mindset perspective and show them the right thing at the right time at the right place, right? Mm-hmm. And so somebody that's in the sidewalk, they don't know what their pain is, right? They don't really know what the problem is. They are your demographic, geographic, behavioral profile, but they honestly don't know that they have a pain. They don't know that they're losing out. They don't know that they could be getting more, whatever it may be. So it's like a little whisper in your ear, right? Like, it's kind of there, but like you don't really know how much it's actually impacting you. Right. So like if you're here, you don't have a marketing funnel, but you've heard about marketing funnels. you're probably in the sidewalk, right? So you don't really know what the pain is. You don't know what you're losing. In the slow lane, someone's accepted that it's a pain, and now they're trying to understand at a deeper level. So now you're getting into a point where they are like, I need to figure this out, right? And so this is where somebody's on Google. This is where somebody is actually talking to people. They may be on a Facebook group. This is where somebody is now going to become the authority, okay? So if you've been listening, if you're listening to this right now and you've accepted that you need a marketing funnel, and what I talk about interests you, you're going to go on Google, you're going to be like, Scott Oldford, you're going to go to my website, it's going to redirect you to go Infinitus, because I hate having a personal website, and you're going to start digesting information and knowledge and process information. How does this work? How does an email automation go together? How does this go together? Whatever lens it is on your particular business. And then, again, both of these stages, we're not selling them shit, right? We are literally just giving them information. We're getting, is it a pain? Yes. All right. I am the authority to help you, and here is everything that you need in order to figure it out. And then in the fast lane is when we bring the person to, and they're ready, and they're like, I want a solution. And our job as entrepreneurs is to create a story and plant a story in their head that is positive towards the fact that we are the best solution for them, right? And then create that particular story. And so what that looks like is like 3 different landing pages, 3 different lead magnets, 3 different everything, right? They all work together. And each traffic source is different. Facebook traffic goes to the sidewalk. Retargeted Facebook traffic, the slow lane. Google traffic, the slow lane. Someone organically just finds you. If somebody refers you, the fast lane, right? And so basically, it's a 3-tiered funnel that can work together to essentially bring someone from the sidewalk to the fast lane to being a customer, or could literally just start right at the fast lane. And it's all based on the intent of where the traffic source is coming from. Right. So a dumb funnel just brings everyone through the same funnel. Smart funnel is, and then I mean you can get a lot more advanced in terms of, like, we get a lot more advanced in terms of lead scoring and understanding what people do and their interests and what they're clicking on, all these different types of things. But at the level that an entrepreneur at under $250,000 is simply having those 3 sort of buckets: the sidewalk, the slow lane, and the fast lane. You have that. We see like just absolutely huge increase. Anywhere from 3 to 12x if you compare that to a regular funnel.
Right. And so each of these landing pages is completely different copy, imagery, all that kind of stuff based on how they're landing on it?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, at the end of the day, your beginning of the funnel may start with a quiz. So a quiz and a guide may be your sidewalk, right? Your slow lane may be a video series. Your fast lane may be a webinar that then goes to, of course, a sales page or a phone call. There's all kinds of different lead magnets that are interchangeable and that type of thing. But what you got to remember is that the lower the lane, the lower the obligation, less information you need to be able to give someone. So in the sidewalk, it's all about discovery. Here's your problem. Here's your pain. You got to convince them. In your slow lane, here's the process. Here's the knowledge. Here's what you need to be an informed buyer. In the fast lane, here's the story. You know what I mean? So scarcity works in the fast lane. Scarcity does not work in the sidewalk and the slow lane. So the little timer on the sales page. Put that to a sidewalk or slow lane, and they're like, I'm fucking out, bro. So let's put this into, if you're at the networking event, you're up and you're having a great conversation. Me and you are having a great conversation, right? And, let's say, I don't own the company I own. Let's say I'm just a business owner selling, I don't know, ketchup. I'm selling like $5 million of ketchup. And so, we're having a conversation, we're chatting about the fact that, I don't know, whatever. And then we start getting into a little bit more of a conversation, and you're telling me about, and I'm telling you about my ketchup company. And, some of the pains, some of the challenges I'm going through. And you're like, well, have you ever thought about doing an online campaign in this sort of way, right? And that piques my interest. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. Matt, do you have what's your LinkedIn information? What's your email address? I'll do you a quick email. No business cards, no nothing, but quick email. So you follow up and where we go back and forth by email a couple of times. And you're like, well, you know what? Why don't we set up a phone call? Why don't we just have a little bit of a phone call for 20, 30 minutes? We're on the phone. You're walking me through. You're telling me the process. By the end of this phone call, I'm like, fuck, man, Matt really knows his shit. This is really, really cool. I'm losing like $1 million a year not being able to do this, and I got a lot of ketchup to sell. And then in the fast lane, you're like, I tell you what, Matt, why don't we live in the same town or the same city? Why don't we go out for lunch or whatever? And you're like, sweet, cool, awesome. So we go out for, dinner, and now you're talking to me about, some of the things that you've done for some of your clients. You're talking about, particularly what life is going to be like for me afterwards, how much more time I'm going to have with, my fiance, how much more time I'm going to have to, go on a trip, the trip that I've been wanting to go to Europe and everything else. And by the end of it, I'm just like, you know what, Matt, how much does it cost? And you're like, $150,000. I'm cool, awesome. Send me the contract. I'll get it signed and we'll start next week. That happens every day, doesn't it? That happens every single day. That's how the regular business world happens. So why do we go online and try to go do what the sleazy dude does every single day?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's very cool. Now, how do you distinguish which traffic sources to go to which place?
What's their intent? What, like, at the end of the day, what is the particular intent of that traffic? If someone's on Google and they're typing in, how do I market a ketchup company? Do they or do they know or do not know what they're looking for? Of course they fucking know what they're looking for. They're on Google. That's obviously in the slow lane. Someone's on the sidewalk and you're just targeting them on Facebook because they're an entrepreneur and they're in your location or whatever. They're in the sidewalk.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're not sitting on their toilet, all right? I'm not sitting on my toilet with my phone. Okay, the majority of the people click on their ads in the back of an Uber, and while they're looking at ads on while they're watching TV, while they're on the shitter, wherever, okay? 60, 70% of people, that's where they're to. So they're scrolling through, we're interrupting the shit out of them with ads all day long. That has to be a pain. That has to be, this is, oh, you're an entrepreneur, well, maybe you got this pain. All right, I'm not bringing you to a video series. I'm not bringing you to some high obligation thing. You got like 3 minutes if you're bringing someone from Facebook. This is the biggest problem with Facebook advertising as a whole, and why people can't make it work is they're trying to get people into the slow lane, or even, I mean, these guys that are trying to get people to sign up for webinars off of Facebook. Like, I do not understand that at all. You better be selling something that really has a high lifetime value, or you're screwed. Because if I'm on the toilet, I don't want to be signing up for a webinar that's just in time. It's starting in 2 minutes. I'm still taking a shit, bro. Right? And so from that perspective, you have to think about the intent of the traffic and then
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you brought up webinars, because my last business, Learn to Blog, it was a purely webinar-based business. It was all Facebook traffic. We actually got pretty good conversions, but
3 years ago, okay, so here's the deal. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, would have been fine. Can't do it anymore. Traffic's too expensive, and buyers are totally different now. Yeah. So that's the whole thing. Like, in the past, I mean, people still, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's still working for some people. Right. But if you want to future-proof your business and future-proof what you're doing, you base it upon behavior.
Yeah. And the just-in-time webinar actually really bugs me, because I don't... So the concept of a webinar, and this is going to be a total rant moment, the concept of a webinar is that it's an event. You're creating an event that's during a specific time, and people are getting excited. They're showing up. They set it in their calendar. They're like, yes, it's tomorrow. I'm excited about this. I'm making a note to show up to this webinar. The just-in-time webinar is basically you saying, look, I do this every 15 minutes, so just fucking jump on whenever you feel like it. Right?
It's trying, and here's another problem. I'm huge on intimacy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm huge on maintaining intimacy as we go to one-to-many. Because, no, you know what? You can't send out a personalized email to every single person on your email list. You can't, get on the phone with every single person that clicks on your Facebook ad. That's just not humanly possible. But faking intimacy and trying to automate intimacy is like the biggest slap/punch in the face that you can give somebody that doesn't even know who you are.
Yeah.
Right? That to me is just like, I'll always get this one. This one pisses me off particularly well, okay? I hate when people send me an email that they try to pretend that it wasn't automated, and it was. That one pisses me off. Okay? That one, because I've been part of like JV launch, joint venture launches. Yeah. And it's totally it's like all they had to do is because I do these like in contactually where they batch 50 emails and you use the same boilerplate, but I'll go through like 100 people, but I'll put in like my own little line on each one. Yeah. Right. Just to save time, because I can't send up, totally personalized email to 100 people. But these people are like, hey, Scott. And it goes out to every 50 people. Yeah. Right. And they're teaching this method to people. All right. They're teaching this method to people to like save time. And it's like, yeah, I see that. I would rather it come from your email system, because now you're just a douchebag. Yeah.
Now, you're right. I delete those emails almost instantly. The ones that really get me too is when you are using an email program. You get Response, Aweber, Infusionsoft, whatever, and you scroll down to the bottom and it says sent from my iPhone, and then you scroll down a little further and it's got the unsubscribe. Like, who thought those were a good idea? But anyway, all right.
Oh man, and this goes back to me being. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is what it's about. Comparing entrepreneurs to marketers. I think marketers a lot of the time forget about intimacy. I think entrepreneurs appreciate intimacy because that's how they build their business.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the issue is marketers see their list as that's my asset, that's my list, that's just like a pool that I'm sending people out to. I think people that truly get it realize that every single name on that list is an actual human being person who thinks somewhat like we do, who opens an email and wonders, is this really from them or is this an automated email? Like they have thoughts and feelings, and and I think the people that get it are the people that realize that they're sending to humans, not just a list.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like, I respond, now not personally anymore because it was just literally like, my team responds on my behalf and they've kind of, possessed my tone and who I am and everything else. But like every single person that replies to one of our emails, doesn't matter if it's a hate mail, doesn't matter whatever, but every single time we send an email, we send a lot of emails. Every single time there's a person that responds to them based on who they are, what they're about, and what their profile is, right? And most people on an email list, you reply to that, you're never going to hear from them.
Oh yeah. And how many times when you reply to somebody who replied to one of your automated emails, does somebody go, holy shit, I wasn't actually expecting a response?
You got it, man. And the amount of those people that actually turn into loyal, dead hard loyal people and end up going and buying your shit from you, it's huge.
Yeah,
right.
Those are going to be your most responsive people over time, are the people that got the personal response, and now all of a sudden they know you on a personal level. You've had a one-on-one interaction, and now, you're preaching to the choir on that one. I love that.
No, totally, dude, and it pisses me off because our entire another guy that does this pretty good. I don't know too well is Nathan Latka. I'm not sure if you know him or not, but.
I love him. Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I know him.
Yeah, so I mean, he comes across online as a little bit cocky and that type of thing, but he's a really cool dude. He's a really cool dude. Not only did when you sign up to his emails, he gives you his burner number. Okay, it might be his burner. It could be his real number. Who knows? And I texted him. I was like, "So is this really Nathan?" He's like, "Yeah, totally." And 10 minutes later, we're on the phone. I shit you not. I'm like, yeah, no, I saw you, blah, blah, blah. And, more than likely it was because I had something that I could help him with.
Right.
But in saying that, I was like, dude, that's really fucking cool. That is really cool. Yeah. The fact that you actually respond, and it's so easy to do. You could just be on the treadmill, just oh yeah, hey, what's up, blah, blah, blah. And that person could have literally gone through a 3-month funnel and you've now escalated them so quickly that, I'm at the point of integrating that. And I put my number out there one time for my birthday back in June and I had 2,000 messages.
Really?
Yeah, no, no shit, man.
That's funny.
And I probably closed $50,000 of business just from that. And I didn't intend it. It was literally hey, I'm doing this on my birthday. Hey, listen, if if we're not connected on Facebook, here's my number. It was just it was insane. My phone just lit up 15 minutes later. It was awesome.
Well, circling back around to Gary Vaynerchuk too, I'm sure you read Crush It. Did you ever read Crush It? It was his first book.
That was his best book too.
That was kind of part of the whole thing is be a real person, actually spend the time to respond to people, respond to him on Twitter. That's how he built his business initially.
Him and Grant Cardone has done it, regardless if it's them or not. Okay, regardless if it's them or not. And I know Gary in a capacity from a few years ago, but regardless if it's them or not, he does an amazing job of having a one-to-many brand, a one-to-millions brand.
Yeah.
But having a one-on-one personal, the amount of shit he actually replies back to, the Snapchats that he replies back, I don't honestly know how, I swear to God, he must have doubles just doing this shit for him. Because he has mastered the ability of connecting one-on-one, and all it takes is for him to reply back to you once, and you're like, fuck yes! Yeah. Right? And you are bought into his brand forever.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. That's awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up.
Totally, man.
There's a few questions that I always ask at the end. One of them, do you have any book recommendations? They can either be about the topics we talked about or just, general books that you find yourself recommending. I don't really care, but I read a lot. I read multiple books a week, so I'm always looking for new books and share the recommendations with the audience. So
Chris Brogan's book changed my life, which is The Freak Shall Inherit the Earth.
Okay, I've never heard of that one. Cool, that's a new one for me.
That's a damn good. Yeah, I mean, like that was damn good. The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco, epic.
Yep.
I read that book probably 20 times when I was like going through like my lowest point. That was a pretty impactful book for me. You know, I got a confession. I don't read many books, to be honest with you. I spend a lot of money and a lot of time on masterminds and being around really. I'm typically around the authors instead of reading their books, right?
Yep.
And so, you know, I'll probably spend somewhere between $200,000 to $250,000 in the next 12 months in different masterminds and different, you know, learning things. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you have three things that stays with you regardless of what the bank takes away with you, which is your connections, your knowledge, and your audience, right? And to me, knowledge is a huge part of that, and being around the right people, you know, knowledge and the connections is a huge part of that. So, you know, I invest really heavily on that.
Very cool. Very
so,
cool.
So yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like I'm like the worst, and I'm a shitty reader anyways. So like, you know, it's like a double whammy that like I get bored reading the book, and I'm just like, man, like I'll just find how to get in front of this dude. You know what I mean? Like if I wanna, you know, like I wanted to know more about like traction. You know what I mean? The book Traction. And so, you know, I like, you know, I hung out with one of the guys that's like featured in the book like a couple of weeks ago. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I can pull everything out of that person in like an hour. Yeah. Way better than the book that's been edited down in like this like condensed version. But in saying that, I'm not saying don't read books. For God's sakes, books are great. Yeah. But yeah, that's just me.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a cool way of doing things. I don't think many people think along those lines of instead of reading the book, let's just reach out. And the funny thing is, most of these authors are probably a hell of a lot more accessible than you think they are.
Oh my God. Majority of authors are extremely accessible.
Yeah.
Majority of authors aren't marketers and aren't entrepreneurs. Majority of them. And because of that, they don't value their time and or resources the same way that entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And a lot of them don't have huge followings.
So let me ask you this. Since you said that you tend to go out and follow people and try to meet people and sort of almost get them to mentor you, do you have some like names of people that people should go and look up?
Yeah. Danny Inney is a mentor of mine. And he's absolutely amazing. He's great. I've been really kind of following, it's really funny because as I'm thinking about these, you know, 6 months ago, they were like, oh, wow. And now I'm like, you know, I'm good friends with these guys.
Yeah.
And Ryan Levesque is, I think he got one of the best methods in the industry.
Ryan's brilliant.
Yeah. Ryan is awesome. Who else? Again, here's the other thing, and here's just a little tidbit of advice for everybody that's out there, for you that's out there, not everybody. If you have a podcast, never, ever refer to your audience as the audience or all you guys. It's like you out there. It's like, oh, me? But the biggest piece of advice I would give anybody is never idolize people that are successful. Okay, they're human beings. By idolizing them, you actually have a difficulty being able to extract the information out.
Yeah.
Because you're putting their advice on a pedestal, and their advice is cheap advice. Okay, so unless you're paying somebody, it doesn't matter who it is. It's always cheap advice, right? And so if you get in a room with these people or on a podcast with these people, and that person's like, yeah, you need to do this. Take it with a grain of salt and don't think about, you know, and I had this issue about 2 years ago. I like idolize like these entrepreneurs, like, man, they're just as, you know, fucked up, emotional, neurotic, and insecure as I am. You know what I mean? Yeah. As an entrepreneur, we got a lot of internal battles we have, and they have the exact same ones, right? Yeah. And it just so happens that their unfair advantage hit an opportunity, just like yours could.
Yeah,
or mine, or whatever, right? And so I think it's important not to idolize your mentors, not idolize the authors and the entrepreneurs that are out there, and to take them as they are a person and a human being.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to a friend, AJ, and he made a comment about like if you follow Gary Vaynerchuk and you follow Tim Ferriss, one of them is preaching that you need to work every waking second that you ever have, and one of them's preaching you need to figure out how to cut as much work out of your life as possible. So, you know, which one are you going to follow? But how many people do you know follow both Gary Vaynerchuk and Tim Ferriss? That's some pretty conflicting information right there, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is. I mean, and I think this goes back to just, one last little thing before we clue up. I think it goes back to the fact that when you're starting out, like, I think a lot of people outsource too quickly. And I think when you're starting out, you know what? You do have to put a lot of hustle in. You know what I mean? And I think people do outsource way too quickly, and it's why they screw themselves up. You need to master each piece of your business and then outsource it, in my opinion. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or have someone around you that's mastering it, and then you can outsource it. Because the problem with not mastering something is you have no idea what the heck is actually going on. Yeah. And outsourcing something that you don't know what's going on, like, you're literally putting a big sign on you being like, I'm going to get fucked. Right? And I don't want that to happen to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, very cool. Thanks so much for joining me. Last question. Where can people go after this episode, find out more about you, check out your programs, sure. Get your offers in front of them, etc.?
Yeah, no, for sure. So just Google Scott Oldford, and it'll go to Go Infinitus, because I'm not going to try to spell out Go Infinitus to you. It's a Latin word, so, screw me for that. But if you want to be part of my community, and which is Limitless Business, we're Limitless, limitlessbusiness.com. It's an application-only business, or application-only community. There we go. We reject like 60% of the applicants at this point. It's not based on revenue or anything. It's just based on what you're really looking for. But it's an amazing group of, there's everything from like people starting out to people making over $100 million in there. And it's totally free.
Very cool. All right. So Google Scott Oldford, and I will link up all your web pages in the show notes if you happen to hit the web page and all that good stuff. Sweet. And thanks again for joining me.
Awesome, dude. Thanks, brother. And thanks for listening.
Absolutely.